Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Counterfactual Gaming. Today I'm not posting a normal video, I'm posting something closer to a how-to video. In my comments, Mephistowski asked me a couple of days ago about what do I mean by training cadres, and he outlined in his comment on the video how he trains up his army, and I thought I would respond to that and provide some feedback on what I mean by a training cadre and how to actually use them. But in this case, we're not going to be doing something to exploit the game engine to do something goofy and weird. We're going to instead exploit something weird in the game engine to do something that's actually historical that the game doesn't let us do. What I mean by that is that in the game, there is no such thing as reserve manpower or a system for reservists, even though historically many countries had reservists or a system for reserve manpower, people who had military training but were not active duty military. Despite this being used by several of the major combatants of World War II, there is no system for it in place. And so today I'm going to use my system of what I call training cadres in order to mimic having reserve manpower. And I'm going to show you how it's more efficient to do what I'm about to show you than it is to just throw all divisions in the training queue. So when I'm talking about training cadres, let me show you what I mean. Now here I've got a save game from one of my previous videos where I was capitulating the Soviet Union using these old school 40 width infantry divisions. And if we take a look at this infantry division, you can see that it's 40 width, it's got 17,700 manpower, it's got AA guns, it's got a ton of artillery, it's got rocket artillery, infantry kits, trucks, support equipment, all that jazz. All the stuff you think of in an infantry division. And it has a training time of 120 days. If we take a look at my Panzer Division, I've got an old school 40 width Panzer Division here. You can see that it has 16,800 manpower. It has a training time of 180 days, and it's got AA guns, artillery, trucks, infantry equipment, light tanks, which are in the recon company, and medium tanks. Nothing fancy here. But when I talk about training cadres, this is what I'm talking about. Pure infantry with enough manpower to make it roughly equivalent to my fattest division in the field. Since the fattest division I have in the field in terms of manpower is this infantry division with 17,700, my training cadre has 18,000 manpower in it. This is going to be really important, as I'll explain in just a second. It also has the lowest priority set for equipment, so it's just going to get whatever garbage infantry kits that you've got laying around. It's certainly not going to use newer equipment if you're even bothering to make new stuff. This is the training cadre. And if you look at a lot of my videos, you'll see I always have like a big fat army set to area defense somewhere. It's never even attached to a field marshal. And as you can see here, I've got this fat army sitting here doing area defense for the West. In this case, it's covering all of the ports in France and Benelux. I have a separate army just to prevent the AI from shuffling divisions around covering Norway. It also has training cadres, but this is the big fat one. It also has some Hungarians and some Bulgarians in it, because what else am I going to do with those troops? I'm not going to throw them against the Soviets. That would be stupid. And I've got these training cadres set up all over the place. Now the question is, why? Why would I waste time doing that at all? And the answer depends upon how manpower works. So I've loaded up a game as France. AI is turned off, and I just want to talk about manpower for a second. This number right here. Because of the way manpower works in Hearts of Iron, there are some quirks in the system that you can use to your advantage that would also make your gameplay more historical, rather than the usual situation, which is you can find an exploit in the game and then do bizarre stuff like conquer the world as Luxembourg. In Hearts of Iron, manpower in the manpower pool has 0 training. Period. End of story. Anytime divisions, ships, air wings, doesn't matter. Anytime somewhere in your military draws from this manpower pool, the manpower it receives has 0 training. So, for example, this division right here, it currently has these stats right here. It's got a manpower of around 2,000 troops. Yes, it's a stupid template, but don't worry about that right now. We're not worried about what kind of template it is. We're just worried about its manpower. If this division, with its 2,000 manpower, took a lot of manpower losses, it would lose a significant amount of this experience. Because when it draws manpower from the manpower pool, that manpower has 0 training. There is no boot camp for manpower. There is no reserve system in place for manpower. And that's one of the reasons I've chosen to use France here, is because historically France had a very specific mobilization plan. And that mobilization plan, it's way too complicated to talk about here, but the long and short of it is France had conscription in place and had lots of people trained and ready to fight. Not at professional military standards, but they at least knew which end of a rifle to use. And they would place them in different formations based on the level of skill and the amount of training they had. I've mentioned in previous videos how France used low-quality reserve formations to cover the Maginot Line, because the Maginot Line had ridiculous fortifications on it, while they had their good divisions follow the Dial plan and try to march into Belgium. This isn't possible to do in Hearts of Iron, because you cannot create a body of reserve manpower like the French had, like the Germans had, like the British had, like the US had. Manpower that is not on the map, or alternatively, not in the training queue, has 0 training. So how do we fix that? So for those who play Hearts of Iron, if you're looking to be historical in your gameplay, it can be sometimes really annoying because you want to have like a body of reservists that you can call up in a 1, 2, or 6 month mobilization to protect your country or to engage in combat operations abroad. This lack of reserve manpower is a little bit galling for historical reasons, and it's also from a gameplay standpoint because there's not a system in place to say, hey, I know I have this much manpower already mobilized. You're looking at the tooltips, you can tell I've mobilized this manpower. I've mobilized this manpower, but unless I literally put it in divisions, it cannot receive training. So how do we get around that? We're going to get around it by exploiting template swapping and training times. The next step in understanding what I do with training cadres is understanding training time. Now, training time is based on the types of battalions and support companies you have in your division. I won't go into all of the details, but just plain pure infantry sets the floor of training at 90 days. If you have like support companies, that sets the floor to 120 days. 1 battalion of armor can set the training time to be 180 days, even if everything else is just infantry. And 1 support company or 1 line artillery can set the training time to 120 days. This means that when you're trying to do things in the queue, infantry divisions will come out of the queue faster if they just have pure infantry. And armor divisions will come out the slowest. You can even see for the tooltips here. Okay, this division, the Mécanique division, it's going to be done by September. The Brigade Coloniale, which is just pure infantry, will be done by June of 36. And the regular infantry division, July of 36. Now, it doesn't matter how many battalions you have. I could fill this entire grid up. It's still 90 days of training. It only matters the types of battalions that you have. Now, these training times in the queue assumes you actually have the equipment. If you don't have all of the equipment, it cannot finish its training. But we're not worried about equipment just yet. We're just worried about the time it takes to get that manpower trained up and used. Furthermore, the training time that you see here also dictates how long a division needs to exercise on the map till it caps out on its XP. Pure infantry trains up faster than support companies, faster than armor divisions. Now, before we go any further, yes, I know there are advisors that can speed up training time. I do understand that. France doesn't have any of those advisors, but they do exist. There are also focuses that allow that to happen. But even those percent changes still work on the baseline of 90 days, 120 days, 180 days. Furthermore, I do know that you can drop things out of the queue early. But when you drop things out of the queue early, it didn't get all of the experience it was supposed to get in the queue. So dropping things out of the queue might be useful to have divisions to put into the fight or to garrison a port, but they're not done cooking, as it were. Another consideration is that divisions in the queue, they require equipment to train, but they expend no equipment to train. Whereas divisions exercising on the map expend equipment via the attrition process, but divisions in the queue do not generate any army XP, while divisions in the field can generate army XP while they exercise on the map, assuming they have a certain minimum level of training to begin with. Now, there's a third puzzle piece to this whole training cadres bit, and that third puzzle piece is template swapping. You can order divisions to turn into other divisions if they are on the map. You can't template swap in the training queue, but any division on the map, you can tell it to become another kind of division. With some exceptions. Yes, I know the Soviets can't swap in KVD templates until they achieve certain focuses, but normally you can. So this division, I can turn it into any of these other kinds of division. I'm not going to, but like I can just, oh, I can change it to this. I can change it to this. I can't change it to this because I'm at the Special Forces cap, but I can change this division to something else. Now, when you do a template swap, divisions lose experience based on the types of battalions that they have changed to. So, for example, we've got the Brigade Coloniale, and we've got the Infantry Division. Now, because these two templates have a lot of the same battalions, they would lose less XP than if I, say, turned this division into this division. It would lose a lot more XP on a template swap. But that's not the only way you lose XP on a template swap. You also lose XP on a template swap if you swap from a template that has a smaller amount of manpower to a template with a larger amount of manpower. So we're here looking at this stupid 4 light armor battalion division here. If we swapped that to this, the manpower differences are huge, and it's going to lose a ton of XP. Why? Because it has to draw manpower from the manpower pool to get up to strength. And all that manpower it's getting from the manpower pool is not trained. So let's put it all together. If we swap back to my save as Germany, what you will see is I have a training cadre here. It's pure infantry, so it's got the 90-day training time. It has 18,000 manpower. I have my line infantry division that I was using to conquer the Soviets. It's got a training time of 120, but it has a manpower of 17,700. And I've got my Panzer division, manpower of 16,800, and a training time of 180. And what I can do is template swap over from my training cadres to a better division. And what I'm going to do is put this little division over by itself, and then I'm going to swap him over to the infantry division template. You see how it's going to have to pick up some extra equipment. I have that in the stockpile. I cheated it a whole bunch. Okay. I'm going to run it for a couple of days till it gets up back to full strength. Okay. It is now at full strength fighting. Now, you saw that that division was at fully trained, had the highest XP level it could have on the map from exercising, and now it's lost some of its training, but it still has 83% of its progress towards maximum on-map training. So I could exercise this for a week or two and it'll be fine. What about if I take this division and do the same thing but turn it into a panzer division? How much is it going to lose? Okay, so it's going to need to grab tanks and trucks and all kinds of crazy stuff. We're going to advance the clock. Let it get back up to strength. Okay. This division lost more XP, but you can still see it's better than what this division would have come out of the training queue as. So far, this doesn't seem like it's a big deal. You're like, well, okay, you're losing XP when you do the template swap, so who cares? But the next thing I'm going to show you is going to blow your mind, because I will be able to train up a training cadre from scratch, get it in the field, exercise it to full XP, then template swap it to a panzer division, and have that division be at full on-map XP faster than if I built the panzer division from scratch. So here's how we're going to test that. Okay, we're going to make sure I've turned the AI off here. Okay, AI is now officially off. We don't have to worry about anything. Now this is just from a save. This is just from a random save of mine from a game I played previously. Nothing's fancy a setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to train this division here. I'm going to train this division here. And I'm going to train this division here. Okay? What I'm going to do, this is going to look boring, but bear with me, is train these divisions in the queue. As they come out of the queue, I'm going to set them to exercise. And then when this training cadre, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to train two of these guys, actually. And when these guys are done training, they're going to exercise on the map to full XP. Then I'm going to template swap them over and continue exercising them. And we're going to see if they beat the Panzer Division and the Infantry Division to max XP. When that Panzer Division and that Infantry Division come out of the queue, I will also start exercising them. All right. I'm going to have to queue up some music for this because it's silly. It's very silly and boring to watch. Okay, here we go. Got two fresh divisions. We're going to put them in their own theater all by themselves. I'm going to put them in two armies in their own theater. All right, we're going to start exercising these guys. Now, I'm not going to template swap them over until they're fully exercised. Panzers still have a ways to go. They're not going to be done until 17 May. Infantry divisions coming up in March. Okay, the infantry division is now out. We're going to put it in its own army. We're going to start exercising it. Now, the training cadres are almost done exercising up to full XP. Panzer division is not even out of the queue yet. Training cadres are done. So, this one is going to be mutated into a infantry division, and this one is going to mutate into a panzer division. Panzer division is still not out of the queue yet. Oh, and these guys are going to start exercising again. Now, I want you to note that this was a training cadre before, but it's all, even after the template swap, it's already really close to being up to maximum on-map training. Whereas infantry division from the queue, it's not even halfway. Panzer division is still not out. Okay. This infantry division is fully trained up. It cannot exercise on the map anymore. It's got the plus 25% modifier in combat from being regulars. Infantry division from the queue, not done training yet. Other training cadre that was turned into a panzer division, also not done yet. But already we can see that the training cadres beat out training those divisions from the queue. They just do. There's no way around it. It beat it out. Let's see if we can beat the Panzer out, though. Okay, infantry division, boom. It's finally done, but it did not even come close to winning the race with the infantry division from the training cadre. Let's take a look at the two panzer divisions. Okay, yeah, I don't think the panzer division from the queue is going to win this race. It's not going to even be close. Okay, it's 7 August. This division that came from a training cadre is fully exercised. It cannot get any more XP. This division from the training queue, it's not even 50% of the way. So we're gonna keep exercising it. We're gonna see how long it takes to get it up to full XP. Alright, it's October 31st, and the Panzer Division finally gets up to proper XP. This is a far, far slower way to train divisions than it is to use training cadres. Not only is it a slower way to train divisions, it also consumes more tanks to do it this way, because the Panzer Division comes out of the training queue and then has to go from level 2 to level 3 via exercising for months on end, whereas the training cadre, even when it did a template swap, it didn't lose all of its XP, so it needed less time exercising as a Panzer Division to get to the right experience level. So it's going to lose less tanks to attrition. Now, for most players, tanks lost to attrition from exercising on the map is probably not a big deal. But if you're dealing with hundreds of divisions, whether they're infantry or tanks, you start to see a real savings in terms of non-infantry kit equipment when you train this way. Furthermore, because it only takes 90 days to get divisions in the queue trained up if they are just pure infantry, nothing stops you from doing what I do, which is have my training cadres covering ports or doing other rear echelon defensive tasks while they are in the process of exercising. When they do this, they can do something useful on the map while they are exercising up. And then, oh, I need 6 more Panzer Divisions. Then I take 6 training cadres and turn them into Panzer Divisions. Boom. Easy as pie. Not difficult to do at all. The beauty of doing this particular method of training is that it's actually more historical to exploit the game engine this way than it is to do it the regular way, because the game doesn't have a way of modeling reserve manpower. All of the things that I'm doing are effectively just implementing a reserve system. I have people being conscripted or enlisting and training up, and they just don't get a real military job, a military specification, until I'm ready to give them one. But they've gone through a sort of basic training. And nothing stops you from doing this with puppets either. Since you can control puppet manpower and you can have puppet templates, there's no reason you can't create training cadres for, say, India, train up a bunch of Indian manpower, and then template swap them over to different templates. Nothing stops you from doing that at all. And that about wraps things up. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and I am planning another video for maybe later on this week that actually just does something a little more entertaining rather than just expound upon how I feel about training cadres. And just to give you a little preview of what that is, it's going to be this. Until then, I hope it's sunny where you are. Regardless, I hope you have a pleasant day.